Hey, GW coming to you live or on demand. And no, I promised that Top Gun review. And that's in the works. Okay, that's the first thing. We've had a lot of things go on that have since bumped that. We had a washing machine go. We've been working crazy hours and then flying to Butler to get all of our Christmas shopping done. So, with that being said, I just watched the prequel to the movie X called Pearl. And if you guys have not seen this is a very interesting story. It stars Mia Goth as Pearl, and you guys know Mia Goth was in X as Pearl, and the other character, I can't think of her name right now. But rounding out the cast, her love interest, the projectionist, as he's cordially known, is played by David Cornswet. Ruth, her best friend, is played by Tandy Wright. Her father is played by Matthew Sunderland, and Mitzi, is played by Emma Jenkins Pearl. Now, this film was shot right after X. Ty West, who is an awesome horror director who I really do admire, shot this thing. Was supposed to be in secret, but it was supposed to be the prequel. So if you're gonna watch X and this, watch this, then X. So we'll talk a little bit about Pearl in case you don't know her or know the character. Pearl was first introduced in X earlier this year. X was a movie where Pearl was played by Mia Goth. Pearl was a very old senior wife who basically went on a killing spree. And Ty West is probably one of the only directors that can make old people frightening. Him and M. Night Shyamalan, I believe. But let's get into the origin of Pearl and tell you what it's really about. Pearl lives on a farm, and she is she's under her mother, who is of German accent, who is very domineering. So you sort of have the Ed Gein thing going on. Her dad is basically invalid, in a wheelchair, can't move. They never really go into why he can't move around, but he has to take morphine. Pearl has dreams of getting off the farm and becoming a Broadway dancer. So she starts accompanying, she starts going to the pictures. And by the way, this is set in 1918. So around the time of World War I. That's why, one of the main reasons it's a prequel, obviously. As the story progresses, you see that her mother shoots down every attempt at Pearl's happiness. Anytime Pearl wants to express how she feels or wants to get off the farm, you see her mother shut her down pretty quick. And in typical horror movie fashion, at some point Pearl breaks and goes on a murderous rampage. And no one is safe. Her mom, her dad, even her best friend, and even her love interest. That's pretty interesting. Now, Pearl is married in the movie to her husband, Howard, and he is away at the war. So he has no idea this is going on. What makes this film interesting is that this is not your typical horror film. This actually builds a lot of story into it. And like I said, I do admire Ty West's work. He really makes you feel for the character of Pearl. In fact, toward the end of the movie, Pearl and her best friend, Ruth, I believe, have a nice 5 or 6 minute conversation in which time Pearl kind of confesses or explains everything. And it is a really, really emotional scene. And to see Mia Goth, convey that, her expressions, her mannerisms, and watching her cry. I mean, it's very, very believable, and it puts a human side to a monster, actually. And you could see why everything kind of gets to her. She's never given a break. She's never given love. She's bullied around by, her mom, and her dad cannot help at all, and basically, stuck on a farm. Now, if you saw X, you also saw the scene with the crocodile. I think I talked about that scene a little bit. The crocodile is back in this, obviously. And there is some wicked gore before I continue. In this film, you will see, in no particular order, a bloody swan, pig covered in fully cooked pig covered in maggots, which you will not forget about. You will see a pitchfork stabbing, an axe attack, dismembering with an axe. Let's see what else. A woman on fire, the after effects of being burnt, a gagging that happens off screen. You will see a decapitated head fed to a crocodile. You will see all, stuff like that. And Ty West does not pull anything back. I mean, the one murder that happens off screen, I could understand why it did, because the character in question that gets killed is her father, like I said, and basically, he can't move. And I believe if you would have showed that murder on film, you probably would have, people complaining about that. So it's done off screen. The dismemberment scene with the axe is really graphic and, really pushes the boundaries of a hardcore R-rated movie. Now, this movie, for the most part, does an excellent job of, like I said, building up story and then watching Pearl descend into madness because of certain things that happen throughout the course of the movie. And nothing will happen to her because she's an X. So Ty West did hint on the fact there would be a second movie leading up to the events of X. The one thing I will definitely tell you is Mia Goth is a great actress, and she's very believable. And it was funny, I was on Wikipedia just looking her up, and she is known for this character. So this is her breakout role. Definitely a worthy prequel. I give it 3.5 stars, out of 4. I really enjoyed it. The ending of it is going to leave people who don't know what they're watching kind of clueless as to what happens now. That's why I just mentioned Ty West said that there might have been another entry into this. So we're just going to have to wait and see. So, on that note, I will talk just a little bit about Top Gun Maverick for those of you who cannot wait. First of all, before the movie came out, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory on this. This movie was supposed to be out some years ago, and the script delays and studio interests have held it back. Now, it was originally supposed to come out again 2 years ago, I believe, at which time Tom Cruise had said he had officially been done filming this. And he had it on a DVD in his car, and his car got broken into and stolen, which then held up the production and the release. Then it was talked about being on a streaming service. And again, Tom Cruise did not want it. He wanted it theatrical, because he has controlling interest in the Top Gun franchise, obviously. He wanted it to be in theaters. And that was at the time when the pandemic hit and we're pushing every movie back. You guys remember Bad Boys Bad Boys for Life was supposed to be out. Pandemic hit, held it back. Fast and Furious was held back. So all these type of movies were held back by the pandemic because no one knew, the directors didn't know if they wanted to release it on streaming or if they wanted to do a movie theater, whatever. So in that particular time when it was released, I believe it was released for in a limited time, then it went to all theaters. So my wife, who's a big Tom Cruise fan, she kept looking for it. And being as Paramount owns it, I figured it would be on Paramount Plus, right? And because Tom Cruise came out and made a statement that he did not want this film streaming at all. So again, it wasn't on streaming. It was only in the theaters, but only select theaters for a time. So speaking as someone who casually knows the first one, not the second one, I know bits and pieces of the first film. I've seen it when I was a kid, but I wasn't crazy about it. The only thing really I can tell you is that, remembering bits and pieces of it, you can go into this new movie with pretty much no knowledge of the first one, because they will show you in flashback some of the crucial events in the first film. The only thing else I remember about the Top Gun movies, guys, is that Nintendo, whenever it came big, released Top Gun, or I think it was LJN, released Top Gun as a Nintendo game. And basically in that game, and if you guys have ever played this game, you were in control of an F-15. And basically all you did was go from board to board and you blasted, enemy fighter jets. You had a machine gun button, I think was A, and I think your rockets were B. But I'm going to tell you something. The game was fun once you were in the sky, but if you went to land on the carrier to get the second mission, good luck landing. Because no one I know who's ever played that game, and we used to play it in mass. I used to have Cub Scout meetings at my house. Yeah, I was in the Boy Scouts. Yeah, guys, I'm telling you right now. But nothing ever happened to me, so we're good. But I would have 4 or 5 different people try to land this plane. We'd all take turns. In addition to doing our, Cub Scout crap, we'd always play Nintendo. We had it down in the living room, and we'd always play. And nobody could land this damn plane. And I'm telling you right now, there was, I think, one time we actually did. We got to the second level. So yeah, we were big time. But the Nintendo game was hard, but it was fun. So anyway, I very rarely remember the first one. But the second one, it does what Cobra Kai did for the Karate Kid. It reinvents 80s nostalgia and basically throws it in your face. From Welcome to the Danger Zone, which everybody attributes to flying an F-15. I mean, you hear that song, that's immediately what you think. Now, Tom Cruise is 50-some years old. And in addition to that, we all know he does his own stunts. And I think Tom's a little bit old to be doing some of this crazy crap. But in the film, basically, I'm just going to go over an overview because I know my wife wants to review it with me. But the overview is that this happens years after the events of the first movie. In real time, it's 45 years, believe it or not. I know, that's a damn long time, right? And after a failed experiment and a defunded experiment, he is sent back by his superiors to teach the Top Gun school. And one of the characters that's a student is actually the son of Goose. Everybody remembers Goose. He's the one that passed away, played by Anthony Edwards. His son looks exactly like him. You'll remember some of the same things like Great Balls of Fire being played at the piano. Well, they pigeon-toe that in, obviously, because it's a crucial scene in the first movie, so we recreate it from the second one. There are a ton of throwbacks to the first movie. There is also a cameo appearance by Val Kilmer. And I want to touch on this just for a second. Val Kilmer obviously played Iceman in the first film. My wife was very vocal and told me, and was yelling at the screen, that basically she hates the character because, in her words, he's a dickhead. That was her words. But Val Kilmer, the actor, has a very serious throat cancer thing going on. That's why in Top Gun Maverick, if you guys don't know, he only had a few lines. Now, think of this. This is ironic. The first movie I saw Val Kilmer in was The Doors. He played Jim Morrison. And he sounded exactly like Jim Morrison. And then he obviously did a ton of pictures. Thunderheart, Ghost in the Darkness, you know, Tombstone, you name it. They actually had to put his voice in the film because he could not talk. That's why he's only on the screen for a limited time, because his physical and ability to speak was very, very compromised. And I really like Val Kilmer. In fact, he did a movie, I think it's on Amazon Prime, called Val, and you guys should really check it out. It's a pretty moving picture. But anyway, Maverick trains this class to do a very high risk military operation. And in typical 80s fashion, it sticks to, you know, the formula of action movies that we've seen come out of the 80s, where we can do everything, we'll lose a few people, but we'll get through it. And it was enjoyable. The one thing, though, I will tell you is toward the very end of the picture, Disney must have had something to do with it, because Disney has a habit of almost killing off main characters and making your heart jump into your throat when you follow a film. This is the same case here with Paramount. Paramount does the same thing. And it's like taking you to the edge of the cliff and holding you over but not dropping you is the same feeling. And then, you know, they pull that initial emotional reaction out of you. And my wife really liked it. Another film that I do want to touch on, because I'll go into more about the Top Gun stuff later, is Father Stew. It's on Netflix right now, and I guess I should probably tell you, everybody who likes drama, likes biographies, should check this out. This is a movie we watched the other night, and it brought my wife to tears. It almost brought me to tears, guys. And it's about the story of a boxer who can't box anymore and tries to be an actor, and he can't be an actor, and finally ends up being a preacher. And Mark Wahlberg in the film is really good, and it's based on a real guy. In fact, they showed the real guy at the end of the film. And I gotta tell you guys, this was probably one of the most emotional pictures, because the first half of it is basically this guy trying to find his way and then becoming a preacher. And he's not your typical preacher. I mean, dude will sit down and you know, cuss during his sermons. He's cocky, and he's the type of guy that you would probably want to talk to. And it has a lot of humor in it, guys. It has a lot of drama. But then they hit you with the second act, because the regular guy was diagnosed with a severe muscle disease, which actually starts shutting down his muscles. And the transformation that Mark Wahlberg does at the end of this film to really convey that is Oscar worthy. And I'm not just saying that because I like Mark Wahlberg. This movie makes you just peer into this guy's life. Now, the other interesting thing about this movie is his father is a derelict alcoholic, white trash, hayseed, for lack of a better word, played by Mel Gibson. The performance Gibson gives is again Oscar worthy. And at the end of the film, you see him change his ways. And it's all because, his son, Stu, gets him to realize, what he's doing wrong. But seeing Mark Wahlberg act like he has a very serious muscle illness, and the way he pulls it off with the realism, his mannerisms, and the makeup, it's incredible. And it is the second half of it's very sad. But the first half of it is just a high on life biography of this guy trying to find his way. And I really highly recommend anybody watch it, because it's a very good movie. I mean, if you can look past the profanity, look at the true story of this guy. And this guy, even in regular interviews, they ask this guy, they says, this disease that you have, don't you hate the fact you do it? And he said, no. He says, God's trying to test me, and I'm going to keep overcoming this. That's where this guy's heart was. And some of the scenes in there are just Oscar caliber, guys. I'm not lying. Now, the one thing I will say is this probably won't be a mainstream Mark Wahlberg film, because a lot of people don't want to watch religious films. But this I wouldn't classify as religious. This I'd classify as a biography with religion in it. Obviously, the guy's a priest. So definitely look up Father Stu. It is one of the most amazing biographies and portrayals that I've ever seen Wahlberg pull off. And it's on Netflix right now, and I suggest, if you have time to kill, I think it's going to be a crappy day, maybe flick that on. The only thing is it's 2.5 hours, but it's good. And it's everything you'd want in a movie. You have laughter, dramedy, you have Mark Wahlberg, you got Mel Gibson. I mean, what else you need? Very poignant story. I really enjoyed it. So those are my picks. And don't be surprised if you shed some tears at the end of this, because very powerful story. That's really all my reviews. And like I said, we'll come back and do the official Top Gun review, but I just wanted to touch a little bit on it for people that couldn't wait.